Nasce uma estrela, a star is born. And on the 21st of July 2006, in the capital city of Brasilia, that phrase became a reality as a boy whose name had gone to be known worldwide was born. Blessed with extreme pace, power, strength, deadly finishing and so much more, the kid with the ability of Messi, Romario, Rivaldo, Maradona and both Ronaldos all mixed into one is set to take the world by storm. This is the story of how Endrick became the best teenager on the planet. Born as Endrick Felipe Moreira de Sousa, he started playing football aged just 4, where it wouldn't take long for those around him to realise he was special. Endrick's father Douglas was a decent footballer himself, and so brought his son to watch him from the sidelines at his matches, where he'd start imitating the adults he was watching from the side. At 6, he was playing in his school team, and was so much better than the other kids around him that the coach banned him from using his strong foot, as it simply wasn't fair. By the age of 9, he was already so far superior of those in the local youth leagues that his father realised he needed to take the next step and sign for one of Brazil's best clubs. That's when he decided to start filming his son's games for the under-11s and upload them to YouTube, where you can still see them today on a platform that Endrick's an entire year younger than. It wouldn't take long for him to be noticed, as 2 teams from the country's largest city, Sao Paulo, showed interest in him. The only problem was that Endrick grew up in a very poor family, and to travel over 600 miles from their home was simply something they could not afford. This meant that whichever team wanted to sign the youngster had to pay for his family's travel and a place to stay. Initially, the 2 sides interested in him were Sao Paulo and Corinthians, where he was remarkably close to joining both, having even trained with each of them, before both sides decided it was a risk they didn't want to take. It looked as if Endrick's footballing journey was over before it even began. But then, another club from the city showed interest. See, one thing to note is that Corinthians, one of the teams that had rejected Endrick, are involved in the Paulista derby, believed by many to be the fiercest in the country. And so, although the exact events are a little bit murky and unknown, you can imagine that when Corinthians' rivals found out they'd let a potential world-class talent pass them by over something as minor as travel and accommodation, they swooped in to get the star. At the age of just 11, Endrick signed for Palmeiras. Not only this, but the club wanted to make sure the boy felt looked after, and so even hired his father Douglas to work as a janitor at their training ground, meaning that no matter how tough things got after his move, there's always a familiar face there to comfort him, and it wouldn't take long for him to settle in. By the end of the year, he's playing in the age group above, being the man of the match in near every game, and was even scoring bicycle kicks like they were nothing. It's fair to say, the gamble from Palmeiras had paid off. Over the coming years, Endrick's development continued, consistently playing in the Brazil national youth sides, all the way through to the under-17s, having played hundreds of games for his nation while still only a teenager, as the focus of this video shifts somewhat. The same year Endrick joined Palmeiras, he watched as Gabriel Jesus left for Man City, ripping up the Premier League under Pep Guardiola, and by 2018, a year after he joined the club, Endrick watched as Jesus scored the winning goal in a game which made history in English football, as Man City became the first team to reach 100 points. More importantly than this though, fellow Brazilian Vinicius Jr., born just a few years earlier than Endrick, signed for the biggest club in the world, Real Madrid. The next year, Rodrigo would follow, and with Endrick coming out various times saying that his idol was Cristiano Ronaldo, and that he was determined to follow in his footsteps, I guess his eventual path was mapped out fairly early on. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's go back to Brazil, as the country entered its most dominant period in football history. Firstly, Flamengo lifted the Copa Libertadores, followed up quickly by Palmeiras going back-to-back in 2 Brazilian-only finals for the first time ever. But even in the middle and throughout these 2 huge victories, much of the excitement for Palmeiras fans wasn't on the Libertadores. It was on their youth teams, as the boy who'd started to make a name for himself across the state was selected for the under-20 team, despite having turned 15 just a month previously. To put that into further context, at the time of writing this video, I am 19 years of age. This means that I still have nearly 2 full calendar years in which I could be selected for the Palmeiras under-20 side. Endrick did it at the age I was playing Fortnite at. Also, sorry if that made any of you watching this feel old, just know it was never my intention. Now, back onto Palmeiras. Despite being an absolute giant of Brazilian football, there's always one huge trophy missing from their collection: the Copinha. A youth tournament played within Sao Paulo. This is the competition that many around the country watch, hoping to catch their first glimpses of the Seleção's next superstar. The likes of Neymar, Casemiro, Vinicius Jr., Alisson, Gabriel Jesus, Marquinhos and so many more in years gone by all made a name for themselves in this competition. 128 of Brazil's biggest and most important teams all send their youth sides to the tournament, and going into the 2022 edition last January, Endrick had more hype and expectation than any of the names I previously mentioned. Unsurprisingly, Palmeiras made it through the group stage unscathed, finishing top and facing Maua in the next round. Throughout the tournament, all eyes were on Endrick, and he didn't disappoint, as after dispatching Maua 4-0 and then Atletico Goianiense 3-0.
Just cutting in here, I can only apologise for how horrifically I just pronounced that team. The spelling is on screen now.
his Palmeiras side faced their toughest opponents yet. 2 times champions of the continent and 1-time champion of the world, Internacional. Endrick wouldn't be lucky enough to impact the match, having played so much football already, but nonetheless, Palmeiras went through having won 2-1, with their next opponents being Usty in the semi-final. And in this match, Endrick saw his first moment that would send shockwaves around the world, as he scored a Zlatan-esque bicycle kick from outside the box, as his side went on to win 5-2, with a 1-0 win against City rival Sao Paulo following, taking Palmeiras to the final of the Copinha, 1 game away from making history. Their opponents? Santos, the side in which Neymar came up through just a decade previously. However, going into the game, it was widely believed that Endrick had already eclipsed Neymar's success at the same age and was instead being compared to a different ex-Santos teenager, the late, great Pele. And with just 5 minutes and 43 seconds on the clock, Endrick opened the scoring. Come full time and Palmeiras had won 4-0, with Endrick bagging 6 goals in the 7 matches he played, finishing as his side's top scorer and winning player of the tournament. Do I have to remind you, he was aged just 15, coming up against players older than myself. I think it's fair to say, the world now knew about Endrick. And for those that didn't, it wouldn't be long before he starred in Europe for the first time, playing for Brazil in the Montague tournament and Under-16 World Cup. Endrick scored the opener just 3 minutes into Brazil's first game against Mexico, which they went on to win 4-0, and then another 3 against the next 2 matches against the Netherlands and England, before coming up against Argentina in the final. The Albiceleste would double and even triple up on Endrick, not giving him an inch of room in the hopes of stopping him from scoring. 2 minutes in, Endrick broke the deadlock. Brazil had gone to win 2-1, with Endrick's 5 goals in 4 games being enough to win player of the tournament again, and with Barcelona scouts watching each of these games, for the first time, rumours of a big move to Europe started circulating. In his years as a youth player, Endrick ripped apart defences, using his upper body strength to shrug off defenders like Ronaldo or Adriano, as well as having an extremely low centre of gravity like Maradona or Messi, making him a completely different animal. In fact, in the past, Endrick has said he doesn't like being compared to others. Why? Because in his words exactly, I am Endrick. However, despite what you may think from this quote, he's far from arrogant and knows he's still got a long way to go if he wants to reach the top, with a drive within him that comes from his idol, Cristiano Ronaldo. In November, when asked about interest from Real Madrid and Barcelona, he simply stated that he didn't care and that he wanted to continue focusing on his football for the time being. And of course, by this stage, he was causing problems for the first team in Brazil. A couple weeks later, on the 6th of October, Endrick became the youngest player to ever feature for Palmeiras, aged just 16 years, 2 months and 16 days, when he played just over 20 minutes in a 4-0 victory. Less than 3 weeks later, Palmeiras found themselves 1-0 down at half-time in a must-win match. And so, who did manager Abel Ferreira turn to in order to change the game in their favour? Endrick. The teenager came on for the second 45, and within 15 minutes, he'd levelled the tie, becoming the club's youngest ever scorer in the process, as well as putting them ahead another 20 minutes after that, of course breaking another record, and becoming the youngest player to ever score a brace. And just like that, Endrick wrote himself into Palmeiras history forever. Following this incredible display, he would start every game for the rest of the season, scoring at a rate of 1 goal every 102 minutes, having forced the club's top scorer Ronnie out onto the wing. And in case you forgot, this Palmeiras side that Endrick broke into was back-to-back reigning champions of the entire continent and newly crowned champions of Brazil, following Endrick's goal against Fortaleza in his first ever start for the club. I don't think I've got a wide enough vocabulary to describe just how incredible this player is. Following the conclusion of the season, many players would be able to rest and recuperate. However, Endrick wouldn't be one of them, as he had business to attend to, when finally on the 15th of December, Real Madrid announced they'd agreed a deal with Palmeiras to bring Endrick to the Bernabeu. £75 million. The teenager on screen is worth £75 million. Of course, not all of that will be paid up front by Real Madrid, but with the boy having conquered Brazil 2 years before he can even legally drive, you can be fairly confident that there's a good chance the clauses in his contract will be met. And so, with the biggest club in the world willing to spend an amount of money never before seen on a 16-year-old, I think it's fair to say that Endrick's level of ability might just match the comparisons we've seen to the legendary Pele. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed. If you've got any questions about the video, please do leave them in the comments down below. Also, please follow all of my socials, link in description, but most importantly, enjoy your day.